Hello, everyone, and welcome to Slash Film Daily for June 7th, 2018. This is Slash Film Editor-in-Chief Peter Sciretta, and today I am joined by Slash Film Weekend Editor Brad Oman.
Hey, that's me.
And Slash Film Writer Hoai-Tran Bui.
Hey, everyone.
And today we are joined by a special guest. She is a freelance writer for Thrillist, Nerdist, Vulture, and SlashFilm.com. We're happy to have you, Lindsey Romain.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we are doing a special edition of the podcast today to kind of talk about toxic fandom, to go off of this whole Kelly Marie Tran situation that we will talk about in a second. And Lindsey, who you may know from the site, she writes a lot of stuff for SlashFilm.com, is writing a piece that might even be up on the site by the time you are listening to this. So we thought she would be a great guest for this topic. And HT has written about this topic and Star Wars in its relation to Star Wars in the past. We'll link that article in the show notes as well. But I guess let's introduce what we're talking about. And that is Kelly Marie Tran, who played Rose in Star Wars The Last Jedi, recently deleted all of her images and posts from her Instagram account. While it's not confirmed, a lot of people are saying it's because of a bunch of fans kind of like drove her off the internet. I'm not sure we have had that confirmed by anyone. It seems like Rian Johnson, the director of that film, has kind of come out on Twitter and I think maybe corroborated a little bit of that, but no one's talked to Kelly Marie Tran, so I don't know if that's the actual details. But I don't know. I wanted to use this as a place where we could have a discussion about this, because it feels like toxic fandom. It's not something I remember much of, 10 years ago on the internet. I mean, sure, there were like self-hating Star Wars fans who, like to, be critical of the thing that they loved, but nowadays it seems a whole lot worse. So I guess I'll start with you, Lindsey. Why do you think this has become a problem today with Star Wars, DCEU? Like a lot of the fandoms have like a real problem with fans harassing the creators. Just really saying mean things.
Yeah, I wish I did know. I feel like that would make it easier for everyone. I think a lot of it comes from this sort of fan entitlement, really. That seems to be what it is a lot, thinking that you're owed something. Maybe because nostalgia has been so catering to fans for the last little while, they think that gives them some kind of ownership over these things that they love, and it makes them really feel protective of it in a kind of vicious way. That's been the kind of main strain I've seen through all of this particular kind of hate.
I think definitely the rise of social media has enabled people to anonymously post their opinions without thought of how this will affect the creators. And now we have a more direct channel to the creators as well. And because people are hiding behind these anonymous identities and walls, it doesn't seem as real as before. And I think it also speaks to the rise in nerd culture to the mainstream, essentially. There's always been the sense of gatekeeping and ownership with nerdery and geekdom, but in a sense it was almost a camaraderie because it was such a small group, but they were still outsiders in that regard. But as superheroes and sci-fi kind of rose to the mainstream, it's kind of created this dilemma for a lot of nerds who always had that entitlement to having a very small, very exclusive community, and now have to deal with more people being interested in what they were interested in, and feeling that ownership, like Lindsey was saying, and not thinking that people deserve to be fans like they are.
Yeah, and it also seems weird. It seems like a lot of these fans seem to believe that their view and the view of like the other fans that they speak to are the majority. They always, like, I always see that with DC fans, and I see that with these, Star Wars fans that are attacking, people like Kelly Marie Tran and director Rian Johnson, is it doesn't even occur to them in their head that they could be in the minority and be the vocal minority of, the big majority of people that actually, like the film. Brad, do you have any theories on why that could be?
Some of it is just is blindness as to like the fact, like, because a lot of times people follow people that they agree with. You don't really go out of your way to follow too many people who have differing opinions from you. You know, Twitter is an echo chamber. You know, so especially for when you're allowed to choose who you follow, and you really only get see the same things regurgitated over and over again, and that's what you retweet, and that's what you agree with. And so these people who are upset about the direction Star Wars has taken and have a lot of bad things to say about it, follow and agree with people who have the same things to say, and that's what they see. And so they don't see a lot of the people who are satisfied with it, happy with it. I think another bigger, larger problem, and this is more so just a general societal issue, is that we've gotten to a point in the political climate and social climate that people feel a need to, express themselves in a very hateful and aggressive way. And that comes from a sense of entitlement brought about by certain changes made, in the political spectrum recently. And especially when, obviously there are valid complaints and criticisms that people have when it comes to things like Star Wars, The Last Jedi. There are certain story decisions that were made that people don't agree with, and it's fine if you don't like those kinds of things. There are plenty of valid things you can say, but some of the louder and more frustrating voices, which obviously led to Kelly Marie Tran, leaving Instagram, are these people who are whining about Star Wars being ruined by what they're calling social justice warriors, and upset that there are so many more prominent women in the galaxy now, and Kathleen Kennedy is ruining Star Wars and all this kind of thing. And it's just that's like the definition of toxic fandom, just because people look different, or because there are more prominent female characters that weren't really that's celebrated, with the exception of Leia in the original trilogy, is not something that you should get upset about. It's not tainting Star Wars. If anything, it's making it more powerful. It's making it a bigger thing. It's making the franchise live up to this idea of what Star Wars can be. And so just hearing all this stuff is just frustrating on so many levels.
What's interesting to me is that people and fans tend to tie their identity so closely to things they love, to like their fandoms and everything. So when people, critics or creators, don't go with what they think that identity is, or they criticize that project or movie that they like, then they take it as a personal slight. And it's like, I don't know, I mean, I feel like that's a new thing.
I totally get that. My wardrobe is mostly, T-shirts with pop culture properties on them. And, my condo is filled with posters of things, movies and TV shows. And, you oftentimes, to give an analogy that probably people wouldn't relate to, but whatever, on Kickstarter, people will back a Kickstarter for a board game or something, and they'll get so into it that when it's released, and if it's not good, there will be a mass of people defending it just because they spent so much time investing in that thing. And I definitely see that here.
Yeah, I think liking things is good. I think being passionate about things is good. And it's a relatively new thing because, back in the 90s, there was all about ironic detachment. And it was only okay in the past 20 years or so to become a fan and show your true colors. But to use that and weaponize that fandom is not okay.
Yeah, there's another thing that I've kind of noticed, and I'm sure you guys have as well. And it kind of goes along with what we're talking about of this ownership and whatever, but there's also been a lot of defensiveness from the people who are the quote unquote good fans, the people who maybe have problems with The Last Jedi but aren't coming at it from a racist or sexist approach. But I've noticed
that is again me.
Yeah,
because
totally fair.
I liked Last Jedi, but I had some problems, and anytime I expressed problems online, I got grouped into, because it had nothing to do with female characters, had nothing to do with any of the issues that are problem with this group. And it sucks that there's no middle ground anymore where we can have a discussion about, problems with the movie and not be grouped in one category or another.
Right. I just find it interesting because I think that's totally valid. We should all be allowed to dislike what we dislike as long as it's not, hateful. But, I have noticed this, it kind of starts from a place of defense a lot of times. I was getting a lot of Twitter feedback because I kind of foolishly inserted myself into the drama of yesterday. But I was getting a lot of feedback that it would immediately start with, well, I hated the movie, but, and it's just so strange that there's like this weird like need to even say that sometimes. Like, I don't know. I've found that very interesting also, like, especially when we're talking about racism and whatnot in it, to just immediately like kind of start your argument with like, I hated this, but, as opposed to being like, you know what, racism sucks and is bad. And like that should be the foremost thing here. It's just the attitude of it's very strange to me.
Well, I think there's a difference here of, well, you know, the racism and stuff, the sexism stuff aside, which right. I don't think anybody listening to this, I hope, would debate anything there. But the other side of things is being able to, you know, talk and be critical about stuff that you love or other people love. Like, I think is fine. I think the problem is when you start attacking the creators and harassing the creators of these things. And it's weird because, like, when I said that on Twitter and people were like, yeah, she's just an actress. You know, she didn't have a lot to do with the film, but it's okay to harass the director. I was like, what? I was like, no. You know, I think it's kind of this culture of like, when something bad happens to you, you know, you're on a flight on United Airlines, the first thing you do is you tweet at United having a horrible time. You know what I mean? Like, it's become okay of this kind of way of looking at things of like, oh, we now have the ability to say something to the company that is doing us wrong and publicly shame them. And somehow that has bled into our criticism of art. And I think that is totally wrong.
Well, it's especially wrong when, you know, Rian Johnson right now could tweet out the most innocuous thing, like, "Man, I love Kit Kats," and someone would be like, "Yeah, too bad you couldn't make a movie as good as a Kit Kat, you piece of shit." And it'd be and it's like, whoa, chill out, Solo Lover 74. You know, it's just like anything that he says, he immediately has a barrage of people that immediately start haranguing him because he directed Star Wars and they're upset about it. Like, there's no like off switch for these people to just go chill out and live their lives. Like, it feels like these are the kind of people who are bitter and angry all the time and have just found this as an outlet to like release that anger and try and explain like why they're so upset with the world around them.
Yeah, you know, like, speaking to that, one of the most insane things I think I've seen in all of this kind of goes off of that. I was reading this thread from this podcast that wants to kind of like come at the creators, I guess. And one of the responses was like, yeah, well, Rian Johnson's been like a dick to fans like this whole time. And I was like, what? Like,
they're creating their own reality now.
Yeah, and the proof, they used one tweet, which was like kind of really the only time up until yesterday that he's ever even commented on like fandom. And it was literally just like, you know what, I just mute people that are hateful, but so far all my interactions have been really great with friends. That was their proof of Rian Johnson being a dick. I was like, what world
Rian Johnson
are we living in?
Is one of the nicest filmmakers I've ever met. Like at Star Wars Celebration, there was a line of people, I don't know how many people, you know, I guess tens of thousands of people, and he spent all night going through the line, you know, taking pictures, saying hi to every person one by one, you know, the night before he's supposed to have a panel.
Yeah, and he's never once, literally until he kind of cracked a little bit yesterday, has never once said anything, you know, about all of this weird backlash that he's gotten. He's only been generous about it, and he has every right to be an asshole about it, and he hasn't been. And so it's just stunning to me that people are twisting his words that way.
And I've been part of like conversations with him on Twitter, and, you know, not having to do with Star Wars or whatever, you know, just a basic conversation. And it's sad how my @replies become unusable for like a whole day because I was, you know, that he responded to me, and now, you know, a ton of those, you know, Solo Lover 88 or whatever you said, Brad, you know, they just go on the attack, and it's, you know, has nothing to do with what we were talking about. It's a barrage. It almost feels like it used to be whenever I said something bad or we posted something bad about DC films and Zack Snyder, we get a barrage of people like attacking us, and these are all people that don't follow us. I almost felt I had these conspiracy theories, and I think they're probably true, that someone in those groups like, retweet or tell, a group of people about this thing, and it's almost like a mob comes on attack.
Yeah. That's not a conspiracy. That's something that actually happens, because a lot of these users will like mass coordinate attacks, essentially. Like I remember there was this thing called tweet decking, where teens would get their friends to like make a tweet go viral through some sort of coordinated means. And I think that same thing happens now with like hate attacks to various people, not even celebrities now.
So I guess we can both agree that like there's a huge difference between, being critical of something, writing on social media about your hate for The Last Jedi and you attacking someone directly that was creatively involved in it. It's interesting because like I've been thinking a lot recently because I think we all see two sides of these things. We are critics. We criticize, movies for a living. We get paid to do that. But at the same time, we are also creating content. And we often, I'm sure all of us have, gotten feedback that we did not ask for or anticipate from people who have read our pieces, that have been, over the line. So I guess, it's interesting because we see both sides of these things. What line do you think should be the line that people draw when interacting with the creators of content of things that they like or hate?
I mean, I would like to say, like, don't say anything online that you wouldn't say to these people's faces if you were standing in front of them. But some of these people seem like the kind of people who just don't have any tact in general and would probably just run off at the mouth and that kind of thing. So, if anything, I just feel like there's a way to express criticism and your distaste for something without making it personal. And a lot of people take to, Twitter and comment sections and they bring in things that are irrelevant and are just meant to insult the person and not necessarily, discuss or, the criticism of what they're trying to talk about. And so there's a way to do the things without being abrasive. Like, one of the things that annoys me is that sometimes in our work, and this is kind of unrelated, but you'll see what I'm talking about, is like every now and then there'll be a typo in an article. And sometimes the way people go out of our way to tell us is like the most like dick-headed way you could possibly do it. And it's like, dude, just tell us there's a mistake and we'll fix it. Like, you don't have to be an overbearing jerk about it, There's a way to express these things and be respectful, and people normally won't be offended by that. Like there's just a way that you have to do it with tact and respect.
So you're saying if I was in a Starbucks and I saw that their sign had an inaccuracy on their sign, I wouldn't go up to them and be like, "Yo, asshole, you have that sign wrong."
Well, you might, Peter, but I wouldn't do that.
No, I think that gets so like. I have some rules to how I think conduct myself online, and I would never write anything about a movie or thing or when I'm criticizing something that I would not say to the creator if he or she asked me, tell me honestly, what did you think of this? I want to know exactly what you felt.
I think that's another good rule just in general, is a lot of times, engage with a conversation if someone's opening the door for that conversation, but if they're not, then don't do it. That's like kind of what I go back to, like you're saying, when it's people commenting on an innocuous post from Rian Johnson that's like pointing out some flaw in his film, it's like he's not going to listen to you. So what is your point? But if he says, hey, this is why I did this, let's talk about it, that's a totally appropriate time to maybe raise your concern. So it's just like reading the room a little bit is kind of my rule there.
Yeah, and I also want to rant on people that, when Last Jedi was out, I did post a couple tweets about my criticisms of the movie. They weren't mean in any way. They were literally like, I have a problem with this part because of this. And people love replying to you and replying the creator. Like they're, reply and be like, I love that part. Ryan Johnson, at Ryan Johnson did a great job. You're wrong. And it's like, why are you replying the thing I said that was negative about his movie into his stream that he does not want to hear or see?
Exactly.
If he wants to seek that out, he can seek it out. But that's just rude.
That's called snitch replying, right? I think that's what it is.
See, you know all the buzzwords. I didn't even know about this tweet decking thing. So,
I think some of that isn't necessarily trying to get people in trouble. Some of it, I think, is them looking for validation and wanting that person to see how much they appreciate something they did, rather than wanting to show, hey, look at someone hates this thing. And so, it doesn't necessarily make it any better, because obviously they would still have to see the negative tweet associated with their counter perspective. But I don't.
But in a way, it's almost like negging, whatever that word is. Because you're bringing up this negative to them, and you're basically saying it's the positive. I don't know. It just seems disrespectful.
No, I mean, I totally get what you're saying. Believe me, I don't think that it's necessarily the right approach to that situation at all.
Does this all come down to common courtesy? Is it just that we're all, the internet is rude and doesn't consider other people?
Yeah, it's just the basic, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all.
How can we fix this? Because it's become an increasing problem. I know probably no one on this podcast has a solution, because if you did, you probably wouldn't be on a podcast. You'd probably be, fixing real shit in the world. But do you guys have any ideas on how, as writers, we are putting criticism out there. How can we help make fandom less toxic?
I think, I actually had an experience with this yesterday, kind of in the tweet storm of all of the fandom is broken, whatnot. And someone had replied to something I said with, oh no, the movie's not, Last Jedi isn't bad because of racism. It's bad because Luke Skywalker fucking dies and it's stupid. And I quote tweeted him, and I don't usually quote tweet it. I can find that kind of rude sometimes, but in this case I did. And I was like, Luke's not a real person, and you're using this to justify actually being cruel to real people. And it kind of started this conversation where he was literally like, oh, I hadn't thought of it like that. So I think sometimes it is okay to engage with stuff. You really might be able to change attitudes as long as you come at it with a respectful tone back also. It's just talking to people like they're human beings and showing them the compassion that they're not showing you. That's kind of been effective sometimes for me. Not always, there's always going to be the sort of militant fanboys, but I don't know. I've actually changed some hearts that way in the last little while. So
that is a really thoughtful approach. And I have seen that work too, but it does take some work. It takes a conversation.
Exactly.
So maybe trade a witty comeback for a more earned response in a way.
Yes, exactly. Kind of trying to, instead of just being mean right back to them or snappy back to them, actually trying to say, hey, let's talk about this. People respond to that. Of course, it's putting in work that we don't always have the time for or need to, but I think even just inserting little bits of compassion into conversations whenever we can and whenever it feels right, I think is one small way of kind of changing the narrative.
I think that's a good approach. I think, avoiding death threats, harassment, any sexist or racist slurs is always a good first step.
Well, I feel like those people are screwed anyways, right? There's no way we're going to get them on the right side of things.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. You have to be choosy with who you can tell might listen to you sometimes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I saw a really interesting tweet thread from film critic Hulk, who talked about how it was a mistake to abide by that old sort of mantra, don't feed the trolls, because by not feeding the trolls, we've let them sort of fester and create their own sort of toxic community. And I wonder if that's a good way to approach things. Maybe just try to engage, try to block the people who are obviously just trolling, maybe try to have a discourse with them and try to make them see the empathy and everything, like Lindsey said. So maybe that's the answer to things. Try to be a more active internet participant, essentially.
Yeah, and I think everybody, like, I don't know, if I was going to say one suggestion, I think everybody should consider what they put out in this world, not just on the internet, but in this world in general. But in the specific conversation, think about what you're writing on Twitter or Facebook or whatever. The person that you're writing this about, be it a creator, be it a friend of a friend, whatever, might actually read this thing. And, how are they going to feel about it? Is it constructive or is it hurtful just to be hurtful? Why don't we make this world a better place and not, just put that kind of energy out there?
Yeah. I mean, this is like the laziest possible comparison, but has been floating around in my head because of Kelly Marie Tran. But I keep thinking of her line in The Last Jedi, which is, it's not about fighting what you hate, it's about saving what you love. And putting love sort of before the hate is just one tiny little way of rewiring the way that you look at these situations. And yeah,
for sure. And I just I hope Kelly Marie Tran is out there somewhere seeing all the love come her way from the internet, because sometimes it's hard to look past the trees for the forest, and sometimes these mobs and these vocal minorities coming up in mass looks like a lot bigger than it is compared to the actual whole of fandom.
Just be excellent to each other, guys. It's not that difficult to wake up and be a decent person every day. Just like every morning, think to yourself, how can I not be a piece of shit today? And just live that life. Like, seriously, it is not difficult whatsoever. It might seem like it because there are a lot of other people who are making poor decisions, but you don't have to be that person.
Lindsey, HT, do you have any final thoughts?
No, not really beyond what we just said. I feel the exact same way. Just injecting positivity whenever you can and whenever it feels right to you.
Yeah, have courage and be kind.
I know this is I know we're getting into a cheesy place now, but I think in Donnie Darko there's like this self-help guy played by Patrick Swayze.
Yeah, the hate and love guy.
Hate love, and I know it's stupid, and I know the movie kind of mocks it, but like there's this idea of like what are you making a decision out of hate? Or, out of fear or love.
Fear, yeah. Right.
And I know it's easy to mock that or whatever, but I often think that in my life, like, am I making this choice to say this thing because I love this thing, or is it because of fear? And like, if it's fear, like, maybe I shouldn't be doing it, because I found really most of the things that I regret in life were decisions I made out of fear. And that could be a decision not to do something or a decision to do something. And I think a lot of these, these toxic fans, it's disappointing because it's almost like they didn't even watch the Star Wars movies that they love. Because Yoda says a lot about fear leading to hate. It's just like, I don't know. I think, I guess I'm just rounding out by saying, think about what you're putting out in this world and why you're putting it out into this world. And, let's make this a better world and a better place to be a fan, so we can have these discussions. And I think we've said it all. But Lindsey, where can people find more of your work online?
Yeah, you can follow me at Twitter at Lindsey Romain. You can read me on /film, Thrillist, Nerdist, and a bunch of other places.
And you have a piece kind of dealing on this that will be up either today or tomorrow. Or actually, yeah. So, look for that on the site. And HT, where can people find more of your work online?
You can find me every day at /film.com, and I'm on Twitter at Hoai-Tran Bui.
Brad, I'm looking for you. Where can I find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Ethan_Anderton, always writing at /film.com, and also my own podcast called Go Flix Yourself, available on iTunes and other podcasting platforms.
You can find me at /Film on Twitter, Instagram, wherever. This podcast, /Film Daily, is published every weekday. You can find it on iTunes, Google Play, Overcast, Spotify. Please feel free to send us your feedback, questions, comments, concerns to peter@slashfilm.com. If you have something to say about this topic that we did not get into, send it to me, peter@slashfilm.com, and maybe we can mention it on the air in a future podcast. Please go rate and review this podcast on iTunes. Tell your friends, spread the word, and we'll see you tomorrow.